When was the last time the Nebraska men's basketball team defeated a number 1 ranked opponent?
It's an interesting question and a little slice of Husker history.
Holloway to Jordan Larson. It's over. A slice of Husker heaven in Omaha.
Kellogg's throw. It's going to be tipped and caught. It's caught. It's caught at the touchdown, Husker.
The date was February 6th, 1982. The Huskers arrived at the Hearn Center after falling to number 13 Kansas State 75-64. Meanwhile, the top-ranked Missouri Tigers rode a 29-game win streak into the contest.
As the only remaining undefeated major conference team, the Tigers averaged 71 points per game and allowed less than 60. Meanwhile, Nebraska ranked 212th in the nation in points per game, but 10th in points against with 55.3.
On that day, Nebraska flipped the script and blasted the Tigers 67-51.
According to the New York Times, Husker head coach Moe Iba deployed a tough man-to-man defense to counter a Tiger squad that featured 3 members of the Missouri All-Century team.
But that's enough from us. How about we hear a little bit more about the game from the people who lived it? To get you more acquainted with the Antlers, we sat down with Terry Harris, a 1982 member of the Antlers, to figure out just what made them so notorious.
The Antlers were predominantly kind of a dorm group. They were developed, back, I think 76, 77 is when they started. And it was when Mizzou basketball didn't have a really large following, and they found their way through hook and crook to always get a block of tickets right on the half court, right opposing the 2 benches. So they had perfect line of yell to be able to abuse the other team. And then when Steve Stepanovich and John Sunvold came to the Tigers from St. Louis and Kansas City, respectively, and then they added Ricky Frazier, and he was from Charleston, Missouri, which is on the Mississippi River. And then they had a couple of other players that came in that were also Missouri bred, so we had a real home state feel. And with Steve Bone Stepanovich, the attendance grew because they both ended up being NBA players. I think Ricky Frazier played in the NBA too. But they, as the crowds grew, the Antlers became kind of an instigator of student spirit and oddball antics, to things like ordering pizzas to the players' rooms at 3:00 in the morning, on the night before games, just dumb things like that. Nothing malicious, but we had an effect, we think, on certain players every once in a while. Didn't do anything off tone, but definitely exploited idiosyncrasies or things that we learned about players without being too personal.
For 1982, Nebraska senior Jerry Shoecraft, some of the antics did go too far.
Oh, there's some things I don't even want to mention, but it was very cruel. I mean, they talked about, called you names, mentioned your parents. It was a very, very vicious type atmosphere.
While the Antlers may have thought that they were getting in opponents' heads and helping the Tigers win, that night it may have just been the exact opposite.
We got off the bus and we were focused, and I can tell during the warm-ups when we were taking all the heat from the Antlers and their players down there looking and loving it, that we were just getting harassed, but we came out focused.
The Antlers may have had their fun before the game, but once the ball was tipped, it was all Nebraska from there.
We maintained the pace of the game. Again, they tried to full-court press us the entire game, and we had a plan for it. And once you gave the ball to Jack Moore and we spread out our scheme to get the ball in and get it up the court, and we spread the ball out, he just knifed through their defense. It was unbelievable. Jack was only 5'9", but the way he dribbled was such a low center of gravity. He just knifed through their press and we got layup after layup after layup. And when you look at, our scoring averages, 12, 9, 9, 8, 7, that's just the way our team was built, because everybody did something, contributed in some way. And I think we beat them almost by 20 points. It was incredible. It was like 67-51, I think, the final score. And again, we hit 26 out of 31 free throws. But we were focused and dialed in, and it was amazing.
Once the Huskers began to pull away, the Antlers needed to funnel their negative energy somewhere else. Unfortunately, that fell on longtime Husker broadcaster Kent Pavelka. Here's Kent Pavelka with one of the most interesting stories on broadcasting a basketball game.
Eventually, it became apparent Nebraska was going to win that thing because they won it decisively. They had me broadcasting up in the stands, so to speak, kind of similar to the way it is at Indiana now. I mean, we weren't on the floor on the sideline, and we weren't way up in the crow's nest in a booth. They had carved out a little area in the middle of the stands of the arena for the media, and that's where I was broadcasting the game. But the Antlers were pretty close to me, and by the time the game was over, or it looked like it was decided, you can imagine, my style is to get pretty animated. And this was, Nebraska was beating the number one team in the country, undefeated. And I was kind of beside myself in terms of my body language and how loud I was yelling but I was unaware that the rest of the crowd was, at a hush. And it became apparent to me toward the end that I had drawn the attention of the Antlers. So they started throwing stuff, popcorn containers and empty, Coke containers and wadded up paper, throwing stuff at me while I was broadcasting. And I had no help. I was by myself. So, by the time that thing was over, I was literally broadcasting the game like a golf announcer. I mean, I can recall vividly, I got really quiet and I explained to the audience, now, I need to explain what's going on here, but I'm going to finish the broadcast similar to maybe you experience a telecast of a golf event. I'm having to whisper because I'm having things thrown at me and I'm concerned about my equipment. So, it was a broadcast like none other ever in all my years, and that I was doing my best Jim Nantz golf 18th hole Masters style announcing at the end.
As the clock hit triple zeros, Nebraska had done it. They had knocked off the number one ranked Missouri Tigers 67-51, and for one night they were on the top of the world.
When that buzzer went off, I mean, we just went crazy. It was the best feeling I ever had in my college career. And it was absolutely exciting. I remember back then we would get $5 for meal money, after the game. Moe gave us 10. We were rolling. We were more important than the football players for a few hours. How about that? It was very exciting. It was just an incredible feeling, just incredible.
Missouri ultimately got the last laugh as the Tigers eliminated the Huskers from the Big 8 tournament, but for one night, the Huskers were the kings of college basketball.
That was the biggest victory in Nebraska basketball history.
For Ethan Petrik and Will Wilson, this has been Husker History.